Join me as I take you on a trip to Curaçao in the southern Caribbean, a Dutch Caribbean island known for its white sand-covered beaches, extensive coral reefs, and marine life. There is even some railway history. Landing at Hato International Airport, we are greeted with temperatures of 33 degrees Celsius and a humidity of 85%. Curaçao features an arid or desert-like landscape due to its semi-arid climate, with typically less than 18 inches of rain per year. You will find cacti, shrubs, and the divi-divi tree all over the island. We will be staying at the Corendon, the Riff by Hilton Hotels. Located on Mangrove Beach, this all-inclusive hotel is quite luxurious. Although rated as a 5-star hotel, I personally would give it about a 3.5 to 4 stars, as I feel they just simply don't have enough staff to do the job of managing such a large property. With this being an all-inclusive resort, the food is very good, with lots of options, with a main restaurant with a smorgasbord style serving and several smaller restaurants to choose from. The ocean views, particularly at sunset and sunrise, are beyond words and really show off God's creation. The hotel rooms are spacious and clean. Some hotel rooms even have a private pool right outside of their deck. It's hard to keep your camera lens from fogging up when the humidity is above 80%. This is one of 2 large pools that guests have access to. This is the capital of Curaçao, Willemstad. Coming from a rich blend of Dutch colonial and Caribbean styles, the architectural landscape is very colorful. Willemstad has a population of approximately 160,000 people, but that swells later in the day when tourists really pack the square and the area along the waterfront. The Plaza Hotel coming into view now is a former hotel that was constructed near the waterfront and opened in 1957. It was the island's most luxurious hotel and to this day still remains the tallest building on the island. Although the hotel was extremely popular and busy, the hotel had many owners during its time, and the final owners declared bankruptcy in 2017. An interesting note for our Canadian viewers, Canadian Pacific owned the hotel for a short period of time in 1976 and renamed it to the Plaza Hotel. The headquarters for Canadian Pacific of Latin America were moved to Curaçao, The hotel continued to lose money, and Canadian Pacific sold the hotel in 1984. Since 2017, the hotel has sat abandoned ever since. Open to the ocean air, it is no longer able to be renovated. It will need to be torn down. In Willemstad, there is plenty of things to do for a person to occupy them through a whole day. There is plenty of shopping, there's an open market, and there's even a movie theater, including IMAX. The Queen Emma floating bridge is quite the bridge to walk over, and swings open several times a day to allow ships to pass through the canal. It strikes me as entertaining. As the bridge is opening, people are still crossing the gap, even though the warning gates have closed. The bridge is hinged at one end and uses two diesel engines with propellers under the water to move the bridge out of the way. A very simple yet effective way to move this bridge. Some of the larger ships that come through this canal will be guided through by a pilot boat. You will see that in a little bit. While the bridge remains open, there is a ferry service that brings passengers across the canal. Although tourism is the main moneymaker for Curaçao, there is oil and gas as well that is produced on the island. And what a better way to close out the evening than with a fireworks show launched from the Parliament building. Because Curaçao is so close to the equator, the times for sunrise at 6:30 a.m. and sunset at 6:30 p.m. don't change very much through the year. Here's some railway history for Curaçao, for those of you who are curious. In 1874, high-quality phosphate was discovered on the northwest side of the island, on Telfberg Mountain. A tramway and two-track incline system were used to transport the mineral from the top of the mountain down to a dock at Fuke Bay for shipping. At the top of the mountain, donkeys were used as motive power, as the lack of water on the island made it difficult to use steam. That operation only lasted a few years and closed in 1887. In 1910, demand for high-grade phosphate increased, and the mine reopened. In the 1930s, the mine decided to replace the donkeys with Plymouth 3.5 and 4-ton petrol locomotives, and by 1948 those had completely been worn out as they were used when they were purchased. They were replaced by brand new Plymouth 4 and 6-ton locomotives, powered with diesel. At its peak in the 1960s, the mine had more than 13 locomotives running. By the 1970s, Most of the mine was shut down, and there is very little evidence of the railway left. Today, the mine operates using trucks. In 1886, the first horse-drawn tram was pulled through Willemstad. 2 tram lines were in operation. By 1908, the horse-drawn carriages were showing their age, and the government ordered new bi-directional gas-powered trams, and those were put into service in 1911. Unfortunately, with the introduction of the automobile, the tram system never took off and was losing money hand over fist, and in 1920 completely shut down. Today, this is the only active train on the island. One of the days, my wife and I decided to take a tour on a boat along the south end of the island. This included several stops to do some snorkeling. We departed at 9 a.m. and didn't get back until just before supper time at 6:30 p.m. Because the colonization of Curaçao dates back all the way to the 1500s, there are lots of old forts along the coast. Although first occupied by Spanish people, the Dutch colonized the island and took over ownership in the 1600s. You can see part of the fort wall in Willemstad here as we pass it. Many of the resorts have modified the beachfront in order to gain access to it. Here's a different view of the swing bridge in Willemstad from the water. Curaçao is a main port destination for many different cruise ships. Here's one anchored just outside of our resort. Along a lot of the coastline, there are communities of houses. Of course, what is a vacation without snorkeling in the ocean along the reefs and seeing the fish that are in the water? It might be a little hard to tell, but there is a whole school of flying fish flying through the air in this location. At our last stop on our trip, we stop at the Blue Room, a cave located on the very west point of the island. From the outside, you can't even see where the cave actually is unless you knew where it was. Back at my resort, I decided to do some snorkeling, and I spent a couple of hours in the water in different locations along the beach. There were lots of cranes looking for food in the area that I was swimming in. As we close out this video with a beautiful sunset, I hope you enjoyed watching it as much as I enjoyed being there.